All right, Annie. Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome, Annie, to the Success Alchemy Summit. I am so
We're
thrilled.
brewing it up. We're
Yes,
brewing
yes,
up little alchemy, just mixing and matching.
yes. And it really is working that way, Annie. From the people that have given me feedback, it feels like they're finding the elements, the threads that they need to start to make sense of everything that they've been putting together so far, and that it feels like ideas are solidifying and new things are going to be launched from this, which is exactly why I hosted this event. And I'm so glad to have amazing guests like you to help inspire and guide everyone that's joining us.
Yeah, well, you've such a lineup, and I hope that today part of what you will take away from what I have to say, maybe not necessarily all the things you have to do, but all the things you don't have to do, so that way you can really strip away and know where your focus is going to go. Because I find I find like that's such a hard part about starting something new, or even just like in this new place in the new year that we're in. It's like, oh, you want to do all the things, but you can't do all the things. So how do you
Right.
choose which things to do?
Yeah, way too many things that you could be doing.
Yes.
That's my experience, is like, oh my goodness, what should I be focusing on? And that's when we're, trying to level up or start growing in any way. That is one of the key things that happens to us, is we do get overwhelmed, with just the sheer quantity of choices.
Yeah.
So before we dive in much more into that, though, I do want to have you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about, your entrepreneurial journey, how you got here. Annie and I met through StoryBrand. We're both StoryBrand guides, and we have that joint love of storytelling. But you and I obviously have different areas of focus. So please share that with everybody, Annie.
Sure. Well, first of all, I am so grateful, Natalie, that you asked me to join. And I am so grateful to you for watching this. So, for everyone who is watching this, but not everyone, you specifically,
Yeah.
you. I am so appreciative of you watching it. I am well, I know how hard it is for entrepreneurs to be able to keep up with their email marketing and their social media marketing. So, with my firm, Downstage Media, we help you create and automate content so you can do the things that you really like, while at the same time having a presence without the pressure. That's the whole idea behind what I do. And I've been in the social media space for about 10 years. I came about it in somewhat of an unusual way, that I was performing all around the world, and I was performing improv comedy, and I was doing a corporate gig, and the keynote speaker before me was an author and a thought leader in the marketing space named Chris Brogan, and he was talking about this brand new thing called Twitter, and how companies could use it to connect with their customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked around at some of my castmates, because we were in a show that would oftentimes get canceled if we didn't have enough audience.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, guys, I think and it was literally guys. It was me and three guys. And I said, guys, I think we can learn how to use this to get more people to our show. So I just decided to dive in to what at the time was social media marketing, but it was so new that no one called it that. It wasn't even like a marketing, it was just a thing that people were doing. And so then I've just kind of been there ever since.
Yes. Oh, I love that you kind of you found it at that early stage when it was just something really quite different to what it is today. Yeah. And so you've kind of seen it evolve.
Yes, exactly. And around the same time, I had two very, very young children. And so that's going to inform so much of the strategies that I talk about either today or I talk about in my book, Simple Social Media, because it's hyper, hyper practical. Because so much of what I do revolves around sometimes literally other people pulling at me, right? So that's where many of the ideas that I have and what I have tested and tried for years on social is very different from what you will hear from other people, because I am speaking so much to the social media marketing team that has 5 or less people that are automatically divided on their time. And I mean, let's face it, most of the time there's not a social media team. It's
Right.
you doing the social media for your business or your project, or whatever it is. So so then it was around that time when my kids were so young, and I said, well, I think I want a little bit more stability than the performer's life gives me. And so that's when I just started focusing more on social media and less on performing. And then eventually I decided to freelance with social media because I felt like I had enough skills, or at least more skills than the average bear. And then when both of my kids were in school 5 days a week was when I launched my company, Downstage Media.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love how it's kind of parallels your family evolution as well. Yeah, that's so cool. And that's the case for so many entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
Our businesses are never static, and they do grow based on what we can, how much time we have available, what we can accommodate in our lives.
Yeah. And what we want, I mean, I think, and for everyone watching this, like, let me know in the chat, but so much of it for me is because I wanted to design my life more than I could before, right? Before, I was waiting for my agent to call me to say, go to this audition, or I was waiting to get called back for that audition, or I was waiting to book the gig, or whatever it was, versus saying like, oh, I'm going to decide what hours I work, and I'm going to create something that I can do anywhere in the world. So that way, if my husband is an actor, so if we want to accompany my husband on a gig, we can, and I can still get the work done that I need to get done. And 10 years ago, when one of my daughters was 3 and my other daughter was an infant, like, that wasn't as common as it is now.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it is one of the real upsides of entrepreneurship, that level of flexibility, and being able to build a business around you and around your bigger goals for life and what you want to achieve. So yeah, I love that. I love that this is one of the tools. And so I cannot wait to dive into some more of the strategic thinking behind all of this with you, Annie. I know when we were talking about social media, it was about 6 months ago or a year ago, I was really kind of figuring it out, and I still am. Really, I'm not, by any means, really.
We all are.
We're all figuring it out because it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
But I do remember that something that you brought up some things to me that were super surprising. So what things do you share with your clients? Tips about social media that most people find super surprising.
Okay, so a few things that I will say is, you don't have to be on as many platforms as you think you have to be on.
Right.
That's the first thing, is that so many people are like, oh, I guess I have to join TikTok, or, oh, I hear LinkedIn is so big right now. And you don't. If you have a small social media team, or if you are running your social media, it's important to be on 1, maybe 2 platforms. I mean, we're seeing the way that Twitter changed to X, that you may not necessarily want to put all of your eggs in one basket, but 2 is really all that you need. And one of the reasons for that is because, like you're saying, Natalie, the platforms change so much that it's hard to keep up with all of those changes. Yeah. And if you're like, think about if you have, if you're trying to do well in 2 subjects in school versus if you're trying to do well in 5 subjects in school, right? Like, one's going to be way harder than the other.
Yes.
So that's why I think it's really important to only be on 2 platforms. That's one of the unusual things that people will tell me, or that people will say that I'll say.
Yeah.
Another thing is that I'll oftentimes say, don't start social media if you don't have these other things in place first.
Mm-hmm.
So many times people will come to me and they'll be like, I have this idea for a business and I want to get on Instagram. And I will say, great. There's just a bunch of steps that you want to do beforehand.
Yeah.
And the reason I came to this was actually this is something that honestly, like it kind of haunts me to this day. So I had a client that was a dance school, because initially I used to only do social media for the performing arts. I do social media marketing, email marketing, not just in the performing arts, content marketing strategy. That's what we handle. But at the time, I was still very new. And this was a local dance school, limited budget. And so they said that they wanted to get more people to register for their fall classes. Great. So I said, oh, let's run some Facebook ads. I don't usually run ads, but I had a colleague who I worked with who would do Facebook ad magic. And so I was like, you've got to talk to him. He will hook you up. And he did. And we had a really nice following, and that was great. Everything worked from our end of things the way that we wanted to. I had already built up a nice organic community that they had on Facebook. He created the Facebook ads. The Facebook ads, you could see people were clicking on it. They loved the ad. They clicked to the website. And then no one registered for the classes because the website was a mess.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the dance school didn't have a way of at least collecting people's interest with collecting email addresses or anything like that, to just even say things like, hey, we have a new updated website, maybe in a couple of months from then, when things were a little bit clearer and they understood where some of their fault, not their faults, but like where some of the hurdles were that people had to overcome, right? So none of that. And so she lost so much of her marketing budget on a Facebook ad. And so now I have said to clients, I don't think you're ready for me yet. I've got, I'll give them a marketing assessment and I'll say, let's go through your assessment. Let's look at your report. Based on what I'm seeing, I don't think you should start on social media yet until you have a few other elements in place first.
Yeah.
Which is not in my best interest, but I do think it is in the long term, because then when they do work with me for social, they've already got their email marketing set up. They've already got their website in a good place. So that way, when it does the thing it's supposed to do, which is get people to that website to actually click to buy, to register, to whatever it is, then we know that it's set up for that, versus them clicking from an ad or from an Instagram post or a link in a bio or something like that. And then it just falls flat. So that's the other thing that's really surprising, is that I might turn people away, or I might say, let's focus on this part first.
Yes. Actually, that's very similar to the work that I do with my clients, where, they're very focused on, let's get clients. But if you don't have the things that you need to do before, like have a really great message and communicate that clearly on your website and in your social, you're just sort of launching yourself into something that's way more complicated and difficult and not going to be as effective. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then if you think about it too, so often you'll hear from clients, or you may be the client, which is that, oh, I have so many customers right now, or I have so much client work, or I have so much busy work. Like, I'm doing all of this stuff now, and I don't have time to fix my website, or I don't have time to set up this email marketing campaign. I don't have time to do that because I'm trying to work with all these clients right now. And so that's why I'll oftentimes say to people, I know that it's slow right now, and I know that this seems like an investment, but we want to get this stuff humming along. So that way, when people are reaching out to you, when they are scheduling those calls and they are signing those contracts, you know that stuff is working for you in the background while you're able to set up those new clients and onboard them, or new customers, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let me know in the comments what your field is, even if you're watching this later on. So then this way, I can either address as I'm saying it what your current field is, or I can tweak it later on in the comments.
I know that there are people here that are just not commenting just yet, but
Right.
hopefully they'll jump in. This is so helpful, Annie. I already just super, super helpful. And yeah, so I'm wondering if you could give us another example of a common mistake that someone might make when it comes to social media marketing, because I bet there's more than just that one.
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Once you get that, you're done. I go home. My book is only talking about that. No.
Exactly.
So another thing. So it's Well, so as we're recording this, it's the end of January, and it's always so fun, I think, to bring this up in the month of January, because so many people start off January 1st with these elaborate goals, and specifically their New Year's resolution. And we've probably all learned from New Year's resolutions in the past, but we've all been there where you think to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym every day, or I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And it's very hard to sustain that, right? And so I have a different approach to how often you should post on social media. Eventually, you want to get to 4 or 5 times a week. And this is way easier if you're only on 1 or 2 platforms. But the approach that I take, and the approach that we do for our clients, is that we start slowly. So, Ruth. Okay, Ruth is in communications, message delivery training to values-based leaders, executives, and C-suites. Okay, Ruth. Okay, great. So I'm going to assume that you have clients too. Okay, so what I like to do is I have different categories, different content categories for what kinds of stuff to post, right? So promotional stuff, right? Stuff where I let people know about this Success Alchemy Summit or other events that I have going on. Then I only want to post about those kinds of events once a week. I don't want to be too spammy. And what I will do is I will create a batch of posts, and then I will schedule those out once a week. And let's say I make a batch of like 5 posts, or let's say 10. I'll make 10 posts in one fell swoop, and then I'll just schedule them out, February 1st, February 8th, the 15th, 22nd, etc. And so even though at first I'm only posting, say, once a week, because I'm only posting that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I then give myself a couple of weeks to make another 10 posts. And maybe these 10 posts are all going to be about articles that I've appeared in, or podcast episodes that I've been on, or blog posts that I've created. And so then I'm going to create 10 of those. And then I'm going to post those once a week, which means that now in total, I'm posting twice a week. And then I'm just going to keep layering and layering with another category of general content. I go into all of it in Simple Social Media, and then another category. And so I have 4 main categories. And basically, I create batches of 10. I schedule those out to go out once a week. And then eventually at the end of 60 days, I'm now posting 4 times a week. And I have 6 weeks worth of content already done and in the can.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, I think you just made everybody who's watching this feel about 1,000 times better.
Yeah. I mean, and so for me, like, as we said at the beginning, so much of how I design my workflow is based on having erratic home life. So I may not be able to sit down and do 10 posts in a batch, but I might be able to. And so this way, if I schedule them out February 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th, actually this year in February, then that's good. And then 2 weeks later, then I've got some other, I'll find that time within the 2 weeks. But this way, I don't feel like at the end of the day, shoot, man, I got to come up with a whole bunch of stuff for tomorrow or for the next day. I used to dread when my kids had off of school, because so much of my day-to-day operations were based on creating content that I would post the next day. And if they weren't in school that day, then I was up a creek without a paddle.
Scrambling. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scrambling. Exactly.
Yeah. And I have my friend Cameron, who is also in the summit, watching the summit and following along. I know that she puts a ton of effort into creating original posts, and they take her a really, really long time. And sometimes she doesn't have the inspiration, right? So
Yeah.
we all have that day we're like, okay, I've got to post now, but I don't have the inspiration. But when we have a plan and we have a structure like you've just introduced, this changes everything because we don't have to be, on the spot in the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
And something else you could do is you can, so if your friend is in, like Cameron, I think you
Yeah.
said. So
Yeah.
Cameron, if you are, if you spend hour, I'm sure you craft beautiful posts.
Yes.
And then every so often there will be just a time you're like, shoot, I just got to bang another one out, but I don't have as much time to craft it. Then one thing that I recommend you do is to create a variation of a great post that you've had before. So change up the visuals slightly or change out the format. So before, if it was a static post, then maybe you make it a story. If it was a story, maybe you make it a reel. And you're basically saying the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, let's think about it. So there was a book that was called, I think, like Queen Bees and something. And it was the book that the movie Mean Girls was based on.
Okay.
Right. And then Mean Girls was a movie that then became a Broadway musical that then became another movie. Now, this is all basically the same thing, just in a bunch of different formats. We have a book, we have a movie, we have a movie musical, and we have a musical.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 4 different formats of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so you can do the same thing. You could do a reel, you could do just text-based posts, you could do all with the same idea. So if you just have one content statement that you're trying to make, which is maybe that, I don't know, Ruth, communications, message delivery trained to values-based leaders. So maybe it's something like your message needs to be super clear to resonate with values-based leaders, right? And then you're just going to say that in 4 different ways.
Yeah.
Boom, right? So you don't necessarily have to come up with ideas from scratch. You could take what you already have and just morph it a little bit.
Yes. And in fact, that's a really great way of reinforcing your message and standing in your authority, just saying, I really, really think this is important. And I'm going to show you 4 different ways this is really important.
Precisely.
Precisely.
I mean, think about how you've got, we all have commercial jingles that are in our heads that we have memorized because we have seen that commercial. We've heard that song more than one time, right? There's nothing wrong with people hearing your message more than one time. And there's nothing wrong. I have heard the Gimme a Break Kit Kat song in all different versions. They've made so many different versions of that song in the commercial. You could do the same thing with your social media content.
Yes, definitely. This is so inspiring. And I think that this is an important message, just to start getting more creative with what you already have rather than keeping always to stretch out beyond and create something new all the time, which is frankly exhausting.
It's complete. I mean, social media is relentless. Yeah. It's absolutely relentless.
That's
and we need to make it easier for business. It's just, you just can't keep up. And then what I hear when I give keynotes or when I'm speaking to people who are running their own businesses, they just say, I just give up.
Yeah.
And the bummer about that is that when you are in a networking setting of some sort, or when you are meeting with new prospects, that's going to be one of the first places they check.
Yeah.
So you can't just give up because they're going to look there. So you need to have some kind of a presence, but you don't need to have that pressure of, I need to post exactly at this time every day or whatever. I mean, I just don't think that the ROI on that is good enough.
No, I agree. Yes, 100%. All of these points are so important that you have to stay on there. You have to keep posting, but at the same time that there are these super valuable strategies that can make it so much less overwhelming because
and sustainable. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm gonna talk, because I usually say this right from the start, but I did not, but I will say it now, which is, if for, while you're watching this, look me up. Look me up on Instagram,
Yeah.
Annie Schiffman. Note all the extra letters. I do not have that many social media followers. So you would think, how in the world is this person qualified to have written a book, to have her own social media agency? Like, who is she?
Yeah.
And I understand that. There's a store in my town that that opened up a few years ago. And I love this store, and it's right in my neighborhood, and I can walk to it, and I want it to succeed. And there is never anyone else in the store. And so I want to help them, and I want to support them. So I follow them on social media, I like to keep up with what they're doing. And I notice that their numbers, their follower count is growing and growing and growing. And I'm glad. And I see that the owner is making reels all the time. And whenever I'm in the store, she's like filming things or editing things. And so I recently had asked her, I said, tell me a little bit about your process, because I just wrote a book about social media and I'd love to hear how you're using it. And so she immediately looks me up on Instagram, and I can tell this person is nonplussed by my follower count. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll humor you, Miss Author Gal, but I don't know how much your strategies are going to be useful. I have 14,000 followers, right? That's what I'm thinking she's thinking. So that was a few months ago. Fast forward to this past weekend, I'm just scrolling, and she posts on her account, which has a lot of engagement, a lot of followers. Please come into the store. We don't have enough people coming into the store. I am not doing this to make money. I just want to have a nice place in our town, and blah, blah, blah. So clearly, this business is not doing well, right? It's not doing at least what she wants it to be doing. And so she's pleading with her followers on social media. And I just think it's such a good reminder that follower count and even engagement does not necessarily help you with your business. On the flip side, I have a fraction of her followers. However, when I talk to people, they say they found me on social media. They say they looked me up on social media. And I know that that's not just because of the space I'm in. I know a lot of people are doing that for a lot of other businesses. And my business has quadrupled in the past year. So it's not about follower count, and it's not about engagement. And so that's why I feel like if you can just put out some good, solid content on a regular basis, engage with people regularly, comment on people's stuff, share people's stuff, be supportive of other people, build those relationships, then that is going to have so much more mileage than just, this one. She told me she spends 4 hours a day creating and editing social media content. Why?
Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible.
I love creating content. I love creating stuff. But even that, it's like,
hours a day. Wow.
I know. And she's like, and I like how many followers I have. And I'm like, look at how many times you need to post
in my business.
Yeah.
No, I cannot agree with you more, because I'm the same. I have small social media accounts. I focus primarily on LinkedIn. I have met amazing people on LinkedIn. I have met clients on LinkedIn. I met collaborators on LinkedIn. And it's like you said, it's about relationships. And I've built relationships with people. And that's what matters to me. And that's what matters to your business. Right?
Yeah.
It's the quality of the relationships you have. And,
Ruth, you're right. It's quality over quantity. It's quality over quantity.
Yes, Ruth is agreeing in the chat. She's right, exactly that, quality over quantity. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I just had one more burning question before we wrap up, Annie, because I got about 50 questions for you, but I got to get this one in.
We got to do part 2 then.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that, because I know there's going to be a ton of questions coming in about everything that you said. But I'm curious if there's something that you did or that you know of that used to work really well in social media marketing. that doesn't work so well today? Because I've noticed a few things, and I'm just curious if there's something that you've seen.
Yes. So first of all, I'd love to hear from you too, to hear what you have to say. And so one thing is that before, what used to happen on LinkedIn and in some other platforms is, I mean, this has never been new, that the platforms don't want you to post links to other places, right? So it's like, in my blog post, I will tell you about 3 different things that you can learn by attending the Success Alchemy Summit, and three takeaways from what I learned from the great speakers. Here's the link to read the full article. So in the past, what used to happen would be that post wouldn't be shown to as many people. But we are now finding anecdotally that it's not just that post, it's that many of your posts, like LinkedIn just won't show your stuff as a whole if you put URLs in your posts. So that's one thing that we're sort of seeing, that whereas before it was like, yeah, you just sort of like take the hit on that and just say like, I mean, honestly, I still kind of think to take the hit on it, but just know that it's a strategic choice that you would make to say, I know that my post, or now I know that my account may not necessarily get in front of as many people, but I still think it's helpful for me to keep that going in my workflow, to keep testing things out and keep content going out in the meantime. I know that I'm going to make it up in other ways with other relationship building activities that I do by commenting or sharing other people's posts or whatever. So I know I'm going to make up that deficit, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with taking that lump. But that is a difference that is, I would say, it's something that we've seen the past 6 months.
That's huge. That's huge. And I'm thinking, wow, I need to change my strategy. So this is so helpful.
Well, I can't remember. So anyone who, okay, how about this? So if you are watching this, first connect with me and then send me a DM, because here we go. So I put out quarterly so I have my book, Simple Social Media, which teaches the pager method, but quarterly I put out a zine, like a 1990s zine that's called Pager. And it comes out quarterly, and the most recent issue, I don't have it here, but it's at the printer, but the most recent issue is all about trends that we're seeing in 2024, and then using them for all of those different content categories that I talked about before. So send me a DM with your address and I'll slip one in the mail to you.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know that you also have something for people who have registered for the summit. So you tell everybody about that.
Yes. So there are many, many resources that I love to use in my social media content creation, in my social media automation, because I actually automate posts instead of schedule them. I created a game to make social media posts faster. And so by downloading those resources, you'll be able to access all of those tools. You just basically get a sheet of paper with links to all these really helpful tools and resources that we use every day with our clients, that I use every day in my content creation, and that you can use every day to up your social media game.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's just
yeah.
So many people. I know literally everyone who signed up for the summit needs this. So thank you. Thank you, Annie, for your time and for sharing all of that with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for commenting, Ruth.
Thank you for being here with us, Ruth. It was great that you commented, and we really appreciated your presence with us today.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right.